That's good.
All right. Is that good? I'm going to call the work session of the Employee Council to order this Thursday, September 26th at 10 a.m. in the council chambers located at 915 Astoryville Road. Let's go ahead and do roll call. Joelle Landers.
Here.
Lorena Valdez. Here. Josh White.
Here.
Tim Cox.
Here.
Jay Ritchie.
Here.
Kevin Pachenko.
Here.
Raul Villasenor.
Here.
Yvonne Ward.
Here.
Allison Williams.
Present.
Nina Williams here. I don't believe we have any call to the public. So we'll just go on to our first item and only item. Discussion concerning compensation and benefits. We all asked really to have the work session to go over the step plan. So I'm just going to start with Raul, if that's okay, and just tell us, you know, I know you had questions you wanted more information about, so.
So, my questions were like, how does the point, because if I remember correctly, the wages were set on the point system. And if so, like, how does the point system work? Because my question is that what our starting pay for our guys, I feel it's being that low, I don't feel that's appropriate for our job and job classification that we have.
Okay. Do you want me to answer, or do you want to go around the table
No,
first?
you go ahead.
Okay. The point rating that is used in this spreadsheet came from a study that was done, I believe, in Casson. So Teresa, city manager, brought me this information. So it was a study, and it has point rating for all the different positions. Reason being we used this for a point rating, and again, just kind of a starting point, was because this study's been done. It's a town of similar size, and rather than go out and spend thousands of dollars like I believe's been done in the past to do a study to get this information, but then we don't have any money to do anything about it. So that is where those numbers came from, is from this study that's been done in Casson.
Okay. But this is still like, as far as like, I like the STEP program, it shows that, it shows things that you can achieve as long, you know, as you keep going, definitely. I think my biggest question was, would be, just kind of like the compensation for our area and what's around us due to a lot of turnover and so on and so forth. So.
And I would say that this step plan, and also sort of we're looking at the point ratings, and the intention was to look at whether or not we could consolidate some of those. Because previously, the city had a great number of, here we go, salary grades. And really the point was, rather than having all of these salary grades, can we look at positions and get a starting point, either a point rating in relation to a pay grade here. This whole process was not really to discuss compensation. I know we have compensation and benefits here. I think the intention, because this has not even really gone to finance, we haven't looked at budget implications. The purpose of this big spreadsheet is, do we agree with the point ratings? Do we agree with how we have combined certain positions to then be in a group that would start at, you know, a $12 an hour, and then the step plan accordingly? So while I do understand that the wages are an issue, the purpose of this spreadsheet is to look at the step plan and the grades for different positions.
Well, I think what Raul was saying, though, I think it's been brought up before that, you know, we've been told that we would, in the fire department, would be up to where others were, regardless of what the wages. I'm not worried about the number, but to get them up where they are because they are the lowest paid in here.
Okay,
So that, I think that's what he's saying. It's like, how is that gonna,
and that,
how do we get them up to where they need to be so that they can go onto the plan?
Yeah, because this starts us off at minimum wage, and that's kind of my biggest thing with our department right now is what we start our guys out with. That's basically setting us up to fail, honestly, when you pay paid professionals minimum wage. In this kind of setting, rural setting, it's not like people are lined up at the door for us. That's kind of where my issue is. The step problem, is that a yearly thing? The step 1, step 2, step 3, like how does that work?
not necessarily. What the step plan was intended for is that within your pay range, you would then have those steps available, and either based upon merit or longevity, you would take those steps up. And then when you get to step 10, then your options are you need to increase in your pay grade. So either promote to a different group, or, then that would be the max, I believe, for that pay range. So it's encouraging promotion also, rather than being in a position and then just continuing to increase and increase and increase without promoting in a department.
But in some departments, we can't promote. So then what happens?
That is a good question that I don't really have an answer to right now,
Okay.
without, really talking to Teresa about that. Really just looking at those steps, and yes, my understanding is when you get to step 10, your options are to promote, or that is the max in that category.
And
So,
how, oh,
yeah.
sorry,
Go ahead, Tim.
And how do you get to step 10 if it's not a yearly increase?
That's what needs to be, I think, discussed and decided upon. Is it yearly? Is it merit-based? And those decisions that we
The
need to
reason I
make.
ask is because if you don't have a goal, if there's not a set way to get there, you're where you're at right now.
Yeah, so that would be, I think, get in that information, what do you want to see? Do you want to see that annual? Do you want to see that merit-based? Those are the kind of things that we need to come together and decide and put something together.
So at this point, if somebody's already at step 10 or over step 10, that's it?
That's what I think we're looking at, unless
So-
there's promotion.
But again, like I said,
Yeah.
that needs to be a question addressed, though, because in certain departments, there's nowhere for some people to go.
Yeah,
Like,
Okay.
the fire department can be promoted from lieutenant to whatever, to whatever, to whatever, and finally the fire chief. You can be an officer and then go up to a sergeant.
Right.
But it's like with our department, technically, there's 2 sergeants right now active.
Mhm.
And you take a look at Carlos just promoted. He's
Right.
done another, that's 10 years. He's 10 years as a sergeant. That's 10 years before somebody gets that.
Right,
Unless we bump the numbers up and we say, we put
Right.
another sergeant in there.
that's what I'm saying. In
Yeah,
some
that's
cases,
what's
we
good. We're not
can't,
gonna, there's no, the
promote.
ability to promote.
yeah, we
It's
can't
not
do
there,
that.
because there's not
Okay.
that turnover when it comes to the supervisor side. It's all on the low man side, all from the patrol
And
guys.
we still have the issue of compression with this too. Because if we don't have something yearly, even if it's something small, where we're giving longevity people continuous raises every year, then it will help with all that. So that way, like he said, a 10-year guy isn't making the same as a brand new guy. That 10-year guy should be rewarded for his loyalty to the city.
so each of these steps are 2%. So,
Okay.
and again, is that going to be annual,
Right.
or based on merit?
Based on merit.
Joe, if you'll have a seat by Raul.
I think, according to the handbook, any type of certification you get to better your profession is up to the city manager to get up to 5%. So that's kind of a merit thing already in itself with that. As far as if you're gonna do good, maybe like a bonus type thing. I worked for places before that would give you like a bonus for your performance. stuff like that. That would go on top of this without having to worry about your step increases or whatever, but I think the biggest thing right now would be that we don't reward loyalty to the city, and you can look at it now and you can see that even in our department, I mean, half of our department makes minimum wage. Regardless if they've been here for 3 years or 1 year, they make the same. And then you throw into account that some of those guys are paramedics and some of those people are EMTs. Some of those guys are certified in fire rescue, some of those guys aren't. So there's a whole bunch of variables in our department that we can play with. Somebody like Nina though, like she said, like she doesn't have very much wiggle room with that kind of stuff. Maybe a yearly COLA thing is something that we should look at.
And I think that too was part of the intention of the STEP plan, is so that there is something available prior to a 5-year.
Right.
You know, because otherwise there's nothing for 5 years until you get to that 5-year, and I believe it's 2%
Yes.
at 5 years.
Well, it's 2 or 2.5, yeah.
Yeah, and then, so again, that's why, you know, do we like this step plan? Do you want to make it annual
Right.
or
And I think-
merit-based?
Yeah, and I think that the conversation is good.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not picking on the fire department whatsoever. And-
We do.
I know.
Well, they do. But I think you do have big questions, like, you know, they are the lowest paid, and we've been told in the past that we were going to bring everybody up to where they were and then go on. So is this gonna be, we bring everybody up, or are we gonna do it slowly? Lorena, you had your hand up. Did you wanna say something?
No, I have my-
Oh, I thought you did, I'm sorry.
Well, yes, first of all, having the support of longevity as an employee in the city is of utmost importance in order to create institutional memory and support the staff if they have nowhere to go, that they could stay in their position until retirement while still being acknowledged with. I think that both annual and merit-based are, or some combination of that, not to say either or. I think that, I don't know department by department which would have viable certifications, and what the access to that is, as many departments no longer have education funds allocated in the budget, which they used to, and as well, employees used to have annual raises, which stopped a number of years ago. That being annual, not every 5 years. So looking at certifications, but also looking at time, my other question is, with the minimum wage going up to 11, and I think we mentioned this before, but how are we addressing those employees who have been here for, say, a year or longer, who will be going up to minimum wage, and that not reflecting the time already spent, and perhaps that they got even a small raise? How is that previous raise reflected in then going to 11 might feel a little, well, it doesn't really reflect the time they've spent as a city employee and what they've already done. So that's just one of the things I'd like to look at.
Jim?
So for me, merit, we'll talk about merit, because we dealt with this with DOC where it messes up the compression a little bit. But also, like for us, our department, there is no true evaluation system, like a MAP system or a PACE evaluation system in place. And then I base it off of, let's say I'm your supervisor and I'm rating you, but you and I, if we have a problem, so
Right.
my rating is now based on my personal problem with you. So I'm gonna give you a 3
Right.
or give you a 2.5, so your merit, you're not gonna get that good merit, but yet
You
Kevin
like-
works for me and I like Kevin, we're boys, guess what, you're getting a 4, and you're gonna get the maximum merit. That's the problem with a merit increase or any type of merit type thing.
Okay.
So the yearly thing for us works out great as far as this becoming 10 years, you're maxed out. Because we advertise for police department, you start at 35, top out at 52. But I asked that question back when Dan was here, how do I get to 52? because I can't. There was no way possible way to get there, the max I could go was 42. So this gives somebody something that they're gonna achieve. Whether they can promote or not promote, you know they're gonna top out at 52 after 10 years. The turnover rate is the biggest issue that I know we have to deal with our departments, is the
Right.
huge turnover. It takes 12 months to get a guy ready to go.
Right.
And
We're losing
$30,000.
2 already. We lose one Friday,
Right.
we get another guy going to Sierra Vista. Every time we take a step forward, we get to our magic number of 15, now we're back down to 13.
Right.
We can never achieve that because of money wise.
Right.
I actually have a question on that. Since the mayor and council put the ordinance in place of the city paid training that must be refunded if they don't remain an employee for 2 years, is that having a noticeable difference on retention, or is it having
Not
an
really,
effect?
no, not at all.
So are they paying back the
They
training?
would, but we've only had one guy who finds himself in that situation, you know, and that's it. And he hasn't even left yet, so that's still no effect there, you know. So when we take a look at that, okay, let's say Tim, they paid for the apartment up there in Tucson or in Phoenix, and then of course the academy costs, or whatever the case may be. To make more money, to go someplace where I'm making $20 an hour, $25 an hour, just to start, is it worth leaving here to go there to make more money? You know, we talked about like vehicles. For these guys who live outside of town, okay, we throw them a bone, let them take their vehicles home. Now we're throwing something else in there to try to keep, because most of the guys in our department, it's, if you let me drive my vehicle home, my patrol car home, I'm willing to stay no matter what. I mean, what are we spending in fuel costs, additional fuel costs when it came to that? What, 10 gallons a month for these guys to drive home? Reality, it's not that much of a cost difference to help do a little something to keep people within the department. It's that small, because this could be a year down the road, 2 years down the road before this goes into effect. But long term, like Tim brought up, he and I were in discussion earlier, 4 years from now, we're at $15 an hour, minimum wage. We need to look at that now and start dealing with that now and talk, instead of $11 or $13 an hour, 4 years from now, we're gonna be in the same discussion again if we don't address that $15 an hour now. Get everybody where that minimum wage is gonna be 4 years from now. Granted, we're gonna have to bite it in the butt as a city, but if we don't do it now, we're gonna bring it up now, we're gonna deal with that 4 years from now, we're gonna be sitting here at the same table doing the same thing.
And if we don't protect that, people who do work their whole careers here are gonna be ending up barely retiring over minimum wage. That is not something that I look forward to, especially if after my 25, the minimum wage is up to 20, you know, and let's say that I am retiring at 19 because of this program here. I see that happening now. We have people that are gonna retire the next couple of years, that if it does go to 15, they're gonna be retiring $1 more than what minimum wage is after they spent their whole career here. Which is sad, because as of right now, as a lieutenant firefighter in my position, it is actually beneficial for me to start off anywhere else around in the surrounding departments, and I make more money as a probationary firefighter, starting off. Now, if we're not asking, we're not dumb. We know that there's not money. We're not trying to compete or nothing. We are trying to make it though, so it's not worth your time to leave. You know, so why not get us close at least, where it's like, man, I'm not really wanting to give up 6, 7, 8 years for an extra $1 or $2 or whatever. But as of right now, when you look at it, it's like, oh my God, just leaving now, I get an increase without all the responsibility. That's hard for us to retain people. Like I said, it's just for us, and the notion that we get paid based on our overtime, I would like to squash that, because we don't get compensated extra for our overtime, and to make it relevant, our scheduled overtime that we make on a 9-day paycheck, which is the most common paycheck, is 4 hours. So if people think that 4 hours subsidizes our minimum wage pay, it doesn't. And I would like that to be stressed, that the fire department isn't out there just racking up hundreds of hours of overtime to compensate. And it's not even fair for those guys to have to spend that much time. We're already 10 days out of the month away from our families. Now we're asking people to stretch it out to 15 just so they can make a decent living. They're setting us up to fail, and it's becoming a domino and chain effect throughout our department. And like Jay said, if we can't afford it now, which is what I keep hearing, how are we gonna afford it when it jumps to 15? And what are we gonna do?
Just to put a hard number on what he was saying, for example, on here, we're putting starting, lieutenant, our lieutenant, at 14, while as a probationary EMT, and I'm a paramedic, this is last year, they're at 1427, starting with no responsibility as probationary firefighter EMT. So that's just putting numbers into perspective. So for us, we're here 8 years, you know, and we're still not making as much as a starting pay and being promoted. So just to put numbers out there, see you guys.
Yeah.
Well, two things. One, were you recommending restructuring the overtime policy as it exists right now for?
I would like to
police and fire?
restructure ours, because ours is 212 hours that we have to work for the month in order to receive overtime. So any PTO taking for the whole entire month, we lose all that overtime anyway. We would like it to be dropped down to at least 112, so that way we are only getting we're only getting penalized, so to speak, for getting sick for the pay period worked instead of the whole entire month, because it's a drag having to come in on overtime, and you come in and you say you do 17 hours your first week, and then week 4 your kid gets sick and you have to stay home with him. You just lost all your overtime, and all that becomes straight pay. So we would like it that we don't get penalized for unfortunate events happening. That's out of our control, and that would be one of them. So that was part of our old MOU. Why that was even done, I don't know, because we already make low pay on top of no overtime, on top of what is perceived that we make a ton of overtime, which is mainly used for gaining revenue for the city to be spent elsewhere, is kind of where we're at right now. So when we do test and we get 3 or 4 applicants, it's a little stressful, and it's only getting worse, and nothing is being done about it to help us with that, and that's kind of why I would like to be heard on that.
I just wanted to say, I really appreciate your kind of elucidating how that works, and also dispelling, I think, the myth for the public, that the public really does think that, and it's really important for not just us in policy to understand that, but also about looking at this minimum wage step plan. I think it is really important to be proactive, because so come January, those people who are under 11, they go up to 11, thereby discounting what has already occurred. But that will then happen the next 3 years, right, 4 years. And if everybody is getting raises only to minimum wage each time, and negating any kind of either time, yearly, or merit, it's going to have a cumulative effect of, I mean, demoralizing the employees. So just finding a way, I know that's such a big task for you, Joelle, or for the city and the city manager, but at least being aware of how to be proactive. And I never saw that actual strategic plan that the mayor and council put out. I just saw, I think, a one sentence that the mayor and council's strategic plan, they came up with one point as a 5-year plan, which was employee wages, employee compensation, correct? That was what came out of their strategic plan?
I was under the impression, so yeah.
Yeah, but it is on the website, it's under plans and studies, but I think you're right. But again, it comes back to how do we do it? How do we start now to prepare us? This is a great start, I love it. I'm not saying I'm against a step plan, I just wanna know how we get us up and how we go forward. Do you see what I'm saying? Because we've all been heard in plenty of meetings, well, we need to get every department up where they need to be. Where their pay needs to be. Now, that's great.
With our department specifically, come January, you're looking at 2/3 of our department is gonna be making minimum wage. unless you're an officer.
Yeah,
And to us, I mean, our biggest thing is low wages, of course, but now it's all compression, because now there's nothing that separates me from a new guy. Especially if after January we hire them, they'll be making, according to this, about 43 cents less than I am. And I've done almost a decade here. So that's kind of where we're at in our department. I'd love to answer any questions though, if anybody has any questions about us or how we operate or what we do. As of right now though, we are getting set up to fail, and with departments opening up around us, Fry Fire, I believe, is opened up 2 positions. They actually have a program that is meant for people with firefighter jobs, and they actually pull from that program
crossover.
to hire. So it saves them money, and it's essentially easy for them. So kind of, in reality, it's, our guys are looking at it like, oh cool, there's a part-time job. They make more money over there than they do making overtime here. And we're having a hard time filling our own call sheet now and getting that revenue because of all this stuff that's happening. And just to try to put your thumb on it and trying to reel in everybody, it is almost impossible at this point, because you can't blame anybody for trying to make a buck. So.
Tim, did you have any?
This is my first one. I'm Tim
Okay.
Cox with the police department. How you guys
Welcome.
doing? Now, just so you guys know where I come from, I mean, so I can introduce myself. Before coming to the Bisbee Police Department, I worked with the Arizona Department of Correction for 24 years. I was a deputy warden there. I was also a member of the Public Safety Retirement System Board under Corp. And I think part of the reason Jay finagled me into doing a lot of this stuff is I spent the last 7 years of my career doing this.
Oh, wow.
Welcome back.
So this makes perfect sense to me. I can look at this and go, oh, I know what you're doing. I've heard a lot of discussion brought around, you know, the minimum wage, the compression, merits, and all this other stuff. And we did a lot of that with the state and the retirement system, looked at it and stuff like that. Jolie, just real quick, do we have classifications for jobs? FSLA exempt, not exempt?
Yes, yes.
Part-time, not part-time?
yes.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense when you go into that. I mean, I'm here to lend my advice or expertise, whatever you want to call it. I don't call it expertise because I make mistakes, but.
Well, we all do, so that's okay.
But, you know, I know what the police department needs. You guys know what your department needs. You know, and like the lieutenants making the same as their employees, it's not right. We had that problem in the state for a while. I was a captain with 14 years with the state, and I had officers that made more money than me. And we worked on something very similar to this. Jay knows what I'm talking about. And we fixed that, and we fixed it good. And part of what you want to look at, and what I think I'm hearing from the fire department and I'm hearing from other departments, is you want to ensure that your supervisors aren't making less than what your employees are making, because it's not fair, so we need to look at that. And for my own personal thing, I don't like merits. I don't like them at all, because that screws with the compensation. Bad. So, we need to look at that too. But I am very interested in making sure this works, because I think everybody can fully agree that we can't compete with our outlying neighbors, and this city's gonna have a hard time retaining or hiring people, or it's just gonna be a jumping stone for people like me and the fire department. Because if I'm not mistaken, Jolie, we spent what, $28,000 to make me a police officer, I think is what it was?
I would have to, well, because yes, your salary and on top of it, you were the first 2 that there was
The
a
contract.
cost for the
Yeah.
actual,
If I remember right, I think I got
academy.
like $14,000.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, there was cost for the academy, and then there were travel costs. Prior to that, the academy was not. It
Not
was,
an issue.
yeah,
It might
so
be.
now it is.
Yeah, so, you know, the way I look at it, and the same argument I always have with the state, is you're paying all this money so someone else doesn't have to. And that can be a problem. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going anywhere.
Good.
Well, glad to have you.
So what about making, for each class, a salary? I mean, we can't compare with the police, obviously, but like for us, if we are already maxed out, that's all, that's what we get. Where's our motivation to continue in the city?
And that's the same problem we had in the state too, and unfortunately, someone has to be the bad guy, I guess. You have to look at it, there's a point where you just gotta cut it off, you're not gonna please everybody.
Right.
And we
Again,
get
you
that,
have to set a, you
Yeah.
have to set a range.
Honestly, if you.
Because like Jolie said, that's where you get your encouragement to promote, but I don't know if you can promote in your department.
Well, if you
I'm
see that
already-
you have the step
I'm
program,
over past
you can see the end.
Step
of
10,
what
I
you're
can't go
doing.
anywhere.
So you can always
Yeah.
make that decision to stay or go if you want.
Or, you know, in something like that, you can bring up a discussion like we did, where you give them a one-time 5% increase and that's it, you know? I mean, you gotta draw it somewhere.
I mean, I don't know, this is my first government job, but in my other, company that I worked for, new positions were created with additional duties and, a title change or a, you know, assistant to regular coordinator to assistant director, whatever, and I don't know for sure the ability. I mean, I've seen so many new job positions created, some that worked, some that didn't here, depending on the city manager, but, I'm assuming we have the ability to address employees who have no, quote unquote, nowhere to go within a department after 15, 20 years. Is that, you know, a possible option in order to acknowledge an increase? As just a thought.
Yvonne?
There's a lot of things to really consider. You know, and each department is unique.
Right,
I mean,
and that's
it's
what I was
really-
saying, their departments are more complex than my department,
But I
than her
agree,
department.
you know, finances are gonna play a part of this.
Oh, yes, yes.
You know,
And we need to stop kicking it down the can, we need to come up with a plan,
right,
because we are gonna lose people.
right.
And be proactive as departments.
Right, and I mean, I think we all work with a great bunch of people. I think we all do, we can all say that we do. And so some of us, we just want to get up there and then move forward. Like I've said several times, but that's all really what we want. You know, and I like the step plan. I mean, I really do.
I do too.
But the only problem that I have is I'm at 8. I only have 2 more steps. Then what happens? And then I'm stuck at whatever pay, and then somebody else could come in and make more money than I do.
The minimum wage will
And
go
I'm
up.
done.
Yeah. So those are the only questions that I have, and I really don't know how to ask them without money being involved. Do you know what I mean? I'm gonna tell you right now, I love working for the city of Bisbee. I never thought I was gonna have a government job. I've been here 6 years and I learn something new every day. And I work with great people.
I second that.
I mean, I really do. Around, not just the ones that I see on the daily, but Josh comes in and he always says good morning to us. You know, Raul comes in, or he called just a little while ago and his name popped up and I'm like, hi Raul, what do you need? So, I mean, I think that's what it is. And I think that this is a great step, but we need to carry it. Where in the past, previous people in your position let it die. And only cared about what would benefit others, not us.
And maybe in certain situations, we need to come up with an exception.
Right.
In other words, that's it. So, like she said, maybe it's a position name or whatever.
Right.
you know.
And title only, that she still does her job, but she gets another title. Josh,
That's what it would be.
do you have any comments?
No, I
I
mean,
don't know if this is.
I feel like I'd just be echoing a lot of what's being said about the steps itself, but, my department seems pretty cut and dry on this. where we're at. And I mean, and I'm also in the, with parks, I mean, I do have the ability to move department in Public Works and
Right.
open up another one of these, so I'm kinda a little more fluid
Than some of us,
in,
yeah.
yeah.
I have a question about the chart. The blue that's highlighted, what does that indicate?
That is the number that we are looking at having as the start rate
Okay,
for that group of points.
okay.
So basically combining that, you know, we've got the different point ratings there, but keeping that as one category, if you will, and that wage will start at the 12, and then all the way along the bottom, then those are the steps between 1 and 10. So this spreadsheet is the proposed groups. And so while I understand wage is very important,
Especially when
That-
3 of my bosses are getting decreased. They're not gonna like that too much.
well, and again, this is the proposal, this is the work session. My understanding was to look at those groups and
Yeah.
see who needs to be moved. Where do we need to move people? Where are you proposing we move people within those blocks?
How was, because I didn't see the study, how are these groups grouped? Do you know what I'm saying? Because in the groups that I'm in with police, with Lorena and Allison.
So you're in, okay, I see that there.
So because some of them I don't know how a communication officer is in the same group as an administrative assistant or a clerk. I'm confused. How is that grouped?
That was based upon this study.
Yeah, that's what
So-
I
yeah.
didn't see the study, so how did they group that?
Public safety. Communications officer. So in this, they have dispatcher, police dispatcher, and the point rating was 170. And then it has a brief description of under general supervision operates radio teletype to receive and transmit information, processes data through state and federal computers for law enforcement and emergency-oriented personnel. So this study,
Just classified them as an administrative assistant?
yes. Mhm.
Okay, okay. Joe, do you have any thoughts?
I feel sorry for the people that are at the bottom because of raising the minimum wage. The minimum wage is always an artificial number anyway, that's not gonna impose it. But then it puts these people to where you're so close to the minimum wage, it's insulting to our people, and I think that they're the people that need to be looked at first. If it were down to,
Yeah.
classes.
I think that's what we're getting at, is if we do raise the bottom, then it puts them all up with the longevity people, and that's kind of that's our main thing, is our compression, is that we'll have new guys on probation making as much as our fire captain who's been here for 18 years.
I find it ridiculous how much the fire department doesn't make.
Yeah,
I
we do too.
find it really surprising, but.
And maybe it's just knowledge that needs to get out there, that it's been long known that we make a lot of our money on overtime, and we do, granted, that is kind of our lifeline, is our overtime, but overtime isn't free. You gotta come in and you gotta spend more time away from your family on top of that, and then it's taxed. It's really taxed heavily, and we don't even get it until the end of the month. So we have to wait after you've worked it. We still gotta wait to get it and earn it, and pray that your kids don't get sick, or pray that you don't get sick and have to call off and lose it all. And that's been a big issue for many years
It's an
now.
inequitable system that we're not gonna fix, but
No.
we can do our best.
Exactly.
Maybe we could put a little dent in it and make it a little better.
That's all we ask.
The only thing, we talked about how, like, the grouping system, the only suggestion as far as our department too, we have all the lieutenants and all the captains together, but there's a big difference with a lieutenant EMT and a lieutenant paramedic.
Right. So maybe that grouping needs to be looked
I would
at.
just separate them, and then that way, if they're a paramedic and they promote, they have their own, because there's a lot more.
Okay, so there's
Yeah, 'cause it
Yeah, there's fire lieutenant, fire paramedic, or fire lieutenant EMT, fire lieutenant paramedic, and the same for the captains. There can be a captain EMT and a captain paramedic.
Okay, so there's EMT, paramedic. And what was the other one? Within lieutenant and captain?
Correct.
Yes.
I would
Just those
separate
two?
those.
Yes.
EMT and paramedic,
Yeah,
okay.
Just like how we have firefighter EMT and firefighter paramedic.
Mm-hmm,
We'll have
okay.
Fire lieutenant EMT, fire lieutenant
Which
paramedic.
one's better trained?
Huh?
Which one's better trained?
For medical, the
Which one has the more experience or better training? Is that
Para-
different
paramedic
between
has more
paramedic and
education. I wouldn't say experience, it's
Well, it just depends
education.
on what
Yeah.
you're talking about, too.
Yeah, true.
So you have some medics that don't have any fire experience, and you have some EMTs that
So-
do.
So
Mhm.
it's training.
It really is training.
Training, okay.
So,
But that's a really good point, and that's really what I needed help with today too, is I was not aware of that, and I do not believe that that is separated in the accounting system or payroll
only way
system,
that-
and that needs to be addressed. Those are the things that I need to understand where we need to make those corrections, and then within that, does a fire lieutenant EMT need to be somewhere, do we need to adjust these categories?
Along that same line of thinking, I'm looking at the whole spreadsheet, so you'll have to, I don't know. Does the city have salaried positions, where it's just straight salary?
Yes, the exempt,
The exempt, that's what I'm getting
which
at.
is the directors.
Okay, oh, and like your chief of police and stuff like
Mhm,
that? Okay. Why are they in the step?
Cause I included every employee.
Okay, because to me, those positions, that's negotiated. When you take that job, you negotiate your salary, and that's what you get. and
Okay.
You're happy.
Okay,
I mean, and the only reason I bring that up is because when I was a deputy warden, I had to go and talk to the governor and say, this is what I want to make, and he goes, no, this is what I'm gonna pay you, and I'm like, no, this is what I want, and we kind of went in the middle, and I made that's all I made. There was no overtime, that's your salary. I could work 5 hours a week, or I could work 80. So, I mean, I think we need to include that in there, because if we come to an agreement on this council, and we say, okay, let's send it up over to finance, finance is gonna look at, like, okay, the city manager's gonna top out at $105,000, no, we can't afford that. But the city manager is a negotiated position, I think, so that shouldn't even be included in, whatever her
Again,
salary
those
is,
are-
that's
yeah.
on her.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't wanna sound like an
Yeah.
ass about it, but,
no, that's, like I said, I think probably the reason we just included everything was
Mhm.
just that we were not omitting anyone. We were not
Right,
keeping
right.
any information out, like this is all of it, this is
no,
everything,
it's nice to know
so.
where the
Yeah,
dollar
no.
amount is,
Mhm.
cause you need to know that in order to budget, but if
Mm-hmm.
that dollar amount isn't going to change, then that's your
Mhm.
salary. I mean, but you have to have the cap range again, like,
Mhm.
the city manager can make between this, and whatever the city negotiates with that individual needs to be accounted for. But you have to account for that top end,
Mhm.
I get that, but a step increase for them is something I don't think is on the table, you know what I mean?
Okay,
If that makes any sense.
no, it does.
Exempt.
okay.
It does, because you're right, it is.
Although
Yeah,
the
'cause
salary
So once you
range.
bring up everybody to the $12 mark,
Mm-hmm.
the supervisors that are making less than that, or a little more, are they gonna be upgraded to a percentage
For
where they're
this,
making more instead of the same as the officers?
That
For-
was my question.
I mean,
yeah.
why would they wanna be a supervisor, have more responsibilities if somebody coming in is gonna make the same?
We
my,
were having that conversation down here, is that where they fall into the steps? Cause that's what I'm thinking would happen, like if you got, let's use the police department for an example. I'm gonna top out at $52,000, and then you got the sergeant starting out at 40, but that wouldn't really necessarily happen, cause if I promoted to sergeant when I stepped out, I should technically fall into a step 6 or 7 as a sergeant automatically. Cause I'm not gonna promote to sergeant and lose money, starting out at 40
Right, right.
grand.
mm-hmm.
So is that what the plan is they just fall into
Nobody
that
loses,
step?
everybody increases.
Yeah,
those are things to be decided upon as well.
yeah, cause you'll never get anybody to promote if they're just gonna.
Yeah.
Less, yeah.
They're gonna be like,
Yeah,
"Ooh."
so those are things, so yes, so with promotion,
Cause that's how the state system works, is if you're at the top out on your step, cause they do steps, when you promote, you don't go below your step, and I think they give you, I think they call it a 7% on mid-grade. So you're always gonna be, you're either gonna go to the next step, or you're gonna get a 7% increase, whichever is greater.
okay.
So maybe there's gonna be exemptions when everybody goes up to the 12 mark. Those people that are above need to be adjusted to where they're not making less.
Well,
Or the
they're,
same
they're
as the
not,
person
they're, yeah, I was
coming
gonna
in.
say, they're not gonna be making less, because if 12 is the minimum, you know,
Right, but I'm
But-
saying, they shouldn't be making what a person having less years and coming in, if you're a supervisor and have more years,
Mhm.
or just being a supervisor.
and that is, a better example of that is the Queen Mine. The Queen Mine has employees that have been there 10, 15 plus years. They are making currently $11 an hour, and people coming in are at, 11.50 or 12. That's where we're running into it. So yes, someone brand new, no experience in the mine is coming in at 12, and all, that's been budgeted for in that department, I believe, is those employees going up to minimum wage as well. So again, you have someone with 15 years experience and someone brand new off the street, and they're both making $12 an hour. So, but Rochelle's not here to kind of help with that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be expensive.
But when the foundation takes over the mine, is the foundation going to also take over the employee?
I don't know what you're talking
so-
about.
She has no idea what you're talking about.
So a year ago, I
But
believe.
that would have to be negotiated within the agreement that we make, because that agreement is,
It wasn't already made?
no.
Something-
That
oh,
agreement was, it was,
in 2 years' time.
but there's nothing has been
Nothing has
done.
been, okay.
So once, if something's going to be done, it will have to be renegotiated, because the first agreement, it's gone.
Oh,
It was, the 2 years is gone and we haven't moved forward.
oh, okay, so forget it, but.
Okay.
But it is that is the point I was trying to make previously, which, it has to be negotiated in some way, because otherwise it's just gonna be so detrimental to morale. And I do find it interesting what Tim said about looking at where they are in the steps. I don't know how that, would work, but perhaps that can be incorporated into the guidelines of addressing that, is matching where they are in the steps with what that raise looks like.
The only question I have, and I've been looking at this, I'm not really sure why Saida, Samantha, and Grace, who are administrative assistants, basically, are in with groundskeepers.
Where is that? Oh, I see.
It's the third column.
That was based upon point rating,
Okay.
so,
Okay. No,
going,
that's what I
yeah,
was
that's
wondering.
why.
Why
Mhm.
is,
Mhm.
why is that?
I got another dumb question.
No, not dumb question.
Well, we're looking at, we got like the supposed pay scale. Based off of the comments I'm hearing and the questions that I'm hearing about what about this, what about that, what about this, has work been begun on any sort of procedure or personnel or human resource manual on how this pay scale is going to work?
No, and that was gonna be a point I was gonna make, again, forgive me, I'm new to this. How do we move forward with employee council? Do you direct maybe a committee to get together and work on those ideas and how to implement, or does that come from me?
Well, we can't have a subcommittee.
You can't,
Have
okay,
a couple of us work on it at a time with you, because I think that would be beneficial to work with individual departments, because my need is different than Kevin's need and Raul's need.
Mhm.
Joe's need is different than the police or finance. So maybe we should include you, yes,
Okay.
Yes, you should be included in all of our discussions.
Cause, yeah, in
But
my
I-
mind, one doesn't make sense without the other.
Right.
So yeah.
So what we need to do is like, maybe we can carve out some time, and I don't mean overtime or put a burden on you, but maybe we can carve out some time and do each department. Because we need to look at that, because we're finding that, you know, EMT, firefighter, paramedic, those things need to be looked at. And then they may go away from the table and say, oh, well, maybe this needs to be looked at, but if Lorena and I and Allison are the only ones helping you, we're not gonna, meet their needs, because we don't see their needs. Not that we don't know that what they need, we got that part.
Every department's different.
Right, so I think maybe we, as going forward, maybe we should look at it as a department. And have that meeting with that department, see what is most, what they wanna see. Because I love the step plan, I think it's great. I think tweaks and getting us where we need to be is what we're gonna have to do. So, how do you all feel about that? I mean, I think that's a better way to do it than just pick 4 people and let's move on. Because we all have different needs.
I agree, and also, what we are looking at is a transitional plan that addresses the humans in human resources, which are actually individuals by name. Because once this is implemented, it will not matter to the incoming new employees who are not in an existing position of conflict, right? So once this is implemented, the future will work for them. But right now, we have names, we have, you know, Lorena is a person, and other people who I think if each one of us as a representative of our department goes back to our departments and can figure out the individuals, especially police and fire, you guys, and also it seems already have an idea of a plan with changing the overtime. I think that is so important.
We've been wanting to do an MOU with our union and stuff, and some of that can probably be entailed in that. Like, I think that's what separates our medics from our EMTs right now is our current MOU. So that doesn't really apply to the step system thing, honestly, but if we want to integrate all that, then now's the time to do all that.
Is that something that you would be able to formulate within your department, and then would that be brought back to employee council to look at?
Of course, if this is something that employee council is focusing on, I was unaware that this was happening through employee council. I knew that we were gonna do something, you know, with our department specifically, because, like I said, we're at minimum wage, and that's kind of a slap in the face.
Yeah, we've been working on it, even trying to get in the last budget. We even went to have different steps of starting wages. We also met with Carrie Finance and actually see how much it would actually cost to put it in our budget, how much increase we need to put in the budget to make it all work.
Right, and I think that's what we need to do too, is with those departments, we need to meet with Carrie too, because she's the big decider. She's gonna say,
None of this works without finance.
right,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
it really doesn't, so,
Could
We
we
need to know
have
the money.
another meeting where we all go back to our departments, our department heads, or whoever is going to help formulate a by department outline? That we can have another meeting where we all present what each department's needs are, so that you have a better idea of what to work with. We each have an outline, and bring Carrie to that meeting and have her participate.
but I think that Joel needs to be a part of that process with your
Oh,
department.
yes.
For the simple fact is that she needs to know so that we know what to ask Carrie, because I
Ahead
don't
of
want
time.
Carrie to be in here and be like,
What-
I've gotta research this, I've gotta research that. So I think that whomever, I think it should be Lorena and then Josh work together, because they're in public works, they need to look at that. And then, you know, get Carrie in on that conversation. Here are my questions, can we answer any of these? Can we move this around, can we, you know what I mean? So I think that she needs to be an integral part of that. And yes, we have no jurisdiction over a budget or how much anybody makes. But what we want is just to move forward.
And
Want to get something in place, like she said, for future employees, so they're not in the same boat that we are now. And then we're wondering, how are we gonna get paid?
And highlight the potential areas that will need to be looked at in the next, say, was it 2 to 4 years? Like for city clerk, you would highlight that you're at step 8. So that would be something to look at in the next 4 years. So that's kind of the way that each department could move forward, each one of us.
So let's,
So Joelle, I have a question.
Mhm.
So the highlighted is the new,
That's
that's
the-
where you want
the
to bump up or start from there and go forward.
So the yellow
So-
is the 2% bumps at the 12. The what's in blue is that start.
and it's 2% each step, right?
2% each step.
2%, okay.
Yes.
So,
So,
All three of us are like,
Jay, Tim, and then Kevin.
we did a pay increase, 5% for those who had over a year in the department. This was what, 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago? What was that for? Was it a cost of living increase? What was that called? What was that pay increase called?
I don't believe it was a cost of living.
Yeah. Which one?
The
At the
one
fiscal year 18?
Yes.
18 to 19, there was a it was COLA. It was
Okay,
cost of
was it?
living.
Okay, it was
Mhm.
So,
COLA.
so this,
But prior to that, it had been 5 years.
yeah, I get that, but the question I got,
Yeah.
and this, like right now, I make 1777 an hour. That's what Jake makes. We just got that 5% this past fiscal year, the one that we got the year before. If we're gonna call it a COLA or cost of living, how come everybody who's getting hired now into the police department is not making 1777 to start? They're still stopped at the bottom. It was a cost of living increase across the board for everybody here, but yet the guys coming in are making exactly what we were making back then. That right there would have already kicked us up to almost $18 an hour in our department right from the get-go. We would have solved part of that issue citywide, had everybody coming in gets that, they start at the minimum, what the new guy with 1 year in gets.
yeah, cause
So he should be making 1777 an hour instead of 1692.
yeah, cause if it was a cost of living, that means the cost of living went up. So
And
his cost of
everybody
living is
should
the
have-
same as my cost of
Right.
living.
That's
That
just-
is-
Maybe that needs to be.
That's an incredibly valid point, and I don't have an answer for
I
it.
did not.
So,
But I
yeah,
guess
that's,
we'll look
but
into
that is,
You're
that,
absolutely right.
that is a really valid point, and I've got
Cause that
nothing.
would have helped.
But
Now
yeah,
we're kicking up a little bit more, we're giving a little bit of incentive. That goes for these guys too, because I know you guys got one firefighter who's making what, 11?
I believe
11.55?
though, okay,
yeah,
wait,
we had
wait, wait,
4
wait.
of them that didn't even get the COLA raise. So if
Was
it's a
COLA,
raise,
was that
it's-
COLA across the board, or was it only
It was for
for
only those who had a year.
a
with the
year of
department.
employment?
And non-exempt.
Non-exempt, okay,
so it
that's what
wasn't
it was.
exempt.
So it's not a true
It was a-
COLA then?
Yeah, that's
It
what
was
they,
more of a pay raise.
Right,
It was a one-time, but addressing COLA. I mean, it's the way that we looked at it.
right.
yeah, it was called COLA, but yes, you had to have a year of employment and
And you had to be
non-exempt.
non-exempt.
Okay,
I think that's where everybody's confusion was, that they were calling it a COLA.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's why I said, I
It's
don't,
across the
because the
board.
last one was in 13, we didn't get another one until 18.
yeah.
Yeah, that was just the pay raises.
Right, it
But-
basically is just to
But you take a look at it.
Address COLA that
Jake
too.
and-
address what we all were thinking,
Got it,
we're all
last-
doing
this
more
past
for
year.
less. What can you give us? And so they gave us 5%,
But
which
it
we are
isn't-
grateful for,
Yeah.
but it doesn't help the ones that are coming in and the ones that are going forward.
Mm-hmm,
So, yeah, we need to look at that.
That's an excellent point.
mm-hmm.
So how about we take 30 days, get within your departments, get the things that we need to change, you would like to see changed, what your thoughts are, and let's shoot them to Joelle. She can, then go over them with finance, and then we come back.
Can I
Or do you
bring-
wanna do it a different way?
I'll second that.
I mean, we can't vote on it, but I'm just saying.
I'm good with that, I wanted to bring up one thing real quick. Joel, the blue numbers again, if that's what we're looking at going to. Here's my thing, again, I can't remember if it's 2020 or 2021 or whatever the heck it is, when we're finally gonna top out at that ridiculous $15 an hour minimum wage thing. That just messes this whole thing up. It
I
tops
thought-
out at $15 an hour.
Yeah,
Because at 2020 is 12.
Yeah,
And
so
then
it's like
13,
2024 or
14,
something like
Okay,
that.
I'll,
We're
okay,
gonna be having this exact same discussion
Yeah.
in 2024.
Yeah, the federal
Um,
government's
because-
talking about raising it to 15.
I'm looking at the blue here. You got
I've got a bunch that are under that.
a bunch, we need to bring everything up to 15. That's where you need to start.
Yeah.
And like the I don't know, I'm looking at the Copper
Ideally.
Queen ones here. You got them at $12 an hour. If the Copper Queen tour attendant is considered just a minimum wage job, then we need, okay, it's 2025. So we need to bring, if that's a minimum wage job, if that's what that job's classified as, is just simply minimum wage, then it needs to, we need to be looking at it at $15 an hour. I mean, granted, right now, that's not 15, but years from now, it will be 15,
Absolutely.
you know?
Which goes right back to where I was saying that we're gonna have guys retiring barely over minimum wage if we don't do anything about it.
Right, like the fire department guys, I was looking at
Because that would
that.
put everybody,
Yeah.
that would put everybody in our department making
And-
the same, even our captains.
And the
Or
only
no, they
other,
make $1.
Well, and that's gonna adjust, it's gonna have to adjust all of that out,
Of course.
you know, based
As
off
of
of what
right
I
now.
said earlier, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the
And-
fire department, is that a $15 an hour job? Me personally, I don't think so, cause if I got a nice big hole in me, cause somebody shot me and they're stuffing gauze in me, I think that's more like a $20 an hour job. You know what I mean?
and I will say that the minimum wage increase and what we are doing right now, this is across the board. This is not just
No, it's
Bisbee.
everybody.
This is everyone right now. This is Target, it's taco shops, it's
Oh,
everything. So, I mean, I guess I would like a little sort of, I don't know, the word compassion I don't think is right. It's just compassion and understanding that we have a city manager that is willing to even have this conversation.
And we are grateful
And
for
we
that.
are really wanting to, to work in the right direction. I love the idea of taking 30 days. Our next, take 30 days to discuss within departments and meet with me. Our next employee council regular scheduled meeting is November 13th. So that gives us ample time to get together. And my only other point would be, I am going to be gone the first week of November. So I'll be back the day before that meeting. So if we can get it all done in October, I will make the time to meet with you. I will come to your departments. I will come to your staff meetings. You just need to let me know and I will be there so we can have those conversations.
And I will say, I think on behalf of, maybe half the table, I don't know, maybe all of the table, Teresa's willing to start this conversation with us, and I'm grateful for it, because we've always been, we'll get to you later, and felt not important, because we never got to be gotten to.
Yeah.
So I'm really thankful that she has come to the city of Bisbee, and that we waited for her.
Oh, yeah.
I always say we were waiting for her. Now, we didn't know her, but we were waiting for her.
We needed her.
Right.
I absolutely agree, and I think that it behooves us as employee council and as representatives that we are all proactive, and that we help our departments be proactive, that we in turn don't wait for Teresa or for you, but that we add to the conversation, but we add to the work, that we as well do the work and assist in this, and because finance is going to have that say, which is, how do we pay for this? But that's something that we also all need to look at, how do we pay for this? So we don't necessarily have to have the answer, but we have to have it in the forefront of our minds. And also thank you to you, Joelle, because you're inheriting this as well. And so, seriously.
No,
Yeah.
we're grateful that you're hearing us. And I know that sounds
I know.
simple, but some people don't hear. They hear what they think they want to hear in their head to answer what they think you're going to ask. You're listening to us, and Teresa's listening to us, and she's making us a part of the conversation instead of being in the dark.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
One other point to make is to have reasonable expectations on whether or not we can get actual budget numbers prepped. I think what we need to do in this next month is perhaps look at this from a step back, not at the dollars, but at our steps and where we might want to be given the $20, $25, and $15 an hour. Key point, very, very big, important point for Carrie and finance is the audit is in October.
Right.
I don't think if I go to Carrie and say, I need to sit down with you and I need to do this, she's going to look at me and go, now she's wonderful, but we need to respect that audit time in October and at least let's get some kind of, I don't know, bigger picture ideas on implementation perhaps, and let's look at some numbers and play with the spreadsheets, but understand that real numbers that
Might
need
not
to come from
until the end
finance.
of the year.
Yes, that one's gonna take time, so just, I wanted to put that out as far as a reasonable expectation of finance there.
I say even
Wow.
at the end of the year, because budget talks won't start again until
March.
March, so
Mhm.
I think even
We
if.
still have time.
If we can be prepared by March, I mean, fully prepared,
Mhm.
we'll be ahead
I
of
know
the
we
game.
will be.
Have
Yeah.
to be.
Well, I mean,
And
we
you
have
gotta-
to be kind of for the budget,
And
but I
just-
think we could get there. If we all work together, and like Joelle said, she's a phone call away. We have a question or we're stuck and say, hey, we've got this. You know, she does have the study that she used to base on it. Maybe we can find some other information on, you know, what we need.
Just to add to what Jolie was saying, you know, looking at the steps, we all like the steps, we want the steps because that's a rainbow. But you gotta, if we're gonna start with our starting at 15, you gotta talk to your departments and your employees and stuff, and you gotta tell them, you have to be realistic. You can't, you know, like us in the fire or police department, I almost made myself a fire guy. I mean, yeah,
We got a plastic
I'm
helmet
jealous.
for you.
You know, I gotta go back and tell my guys, look, realistically, you wanna top out at 52, but if we're gonna have this minimum wage thing, cause it's not just us, it's all of these guys. We take our money out of the same pot. So maybe that 52 needs to drop down to 48 to make room for other things. So you guys, when you go back and talk to your people, you gotta tell them, you gotta be realistic. We're not gonna be getting rainbows and stars and unicorns.
Right.
And I will check with Teresa, if there's not a problem with that, I will scan this and email it to everybody.
I would be very interested to know what the budget is, the money we have, but I'm talking revenue in, revenue out, you know, because none of this means anything if we don't have the money.
Well, you can look at your budgets from past years. They're
Yeah.
all on the website.
I'm
and you
talking
can-
city.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it's
all
on
on there?
It's all-
It's
Yeah,
all
it's
there.
all there.
It's underneath the financial reports. It goes back
I
all the
didn't
way
see that.
to 2009.
Oh, cool.
But go back and look.
Yeah, that's gonna be what
City
helps.
budgets for longer than that.
Yeah, because city revenue, what do we got coming in, you know, I mean,
It's all on there.
yeah,
Yeah, it's all there.
good.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's really gonna be almost the same numbers. It's not gonna really change that much. We're still gonna have to do with what we have, not what we want.
Right.
Of course.
And I think, for those of you that didn't hear, Mr. Pocken spoke at the last council meeting. And I mean, he said it very, very respectfully, but Bisbee is not a rich community. And we have to, and I appreciate your point there, Tim, with, you know, to be reasonable. I mean.
Yes, we have to be.
Yeah, because, you know, we have to understand what we're working with Bisbee, with the revenue, and with all of those things.
And I think we all know that, and we will take that in. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right.
I got skipped too. That's
Oh,
okay.
I forgot. I'm so sorry.
I just
You're not in my peripheral.
I just have a couple council comments. First of all, happy birthday to our chair, Nina.
Oh.
Last birthday.
Happy birthday.
Second, as you might have heard, the Copper Queen Library is now the best small library in America. And it's a huge honor, and not to overshadow the EBSCO Award for Excellence in Rural Library Service, but it is basically the biggest award that we can get, one of them. So Jason and I went to Burlington, Vermont to go to the ARSO conference, which is the Association for Rural and Small Libraries, to accept this award. And we had it all planned out. Unfortunately, we had two part-time employees, one who was on their honeymoon and the other one got extremely sick. And so that morning that we were to fly out, Jason was prepared to stay home and send me to Vermont on my own, which is hilarious. But Joelle and Teresa stepped up to the plate and said that they would run the library. And they did. They ran the library for 3 days with our volunteer Cindy. And having not worked in the library before, They just did an amazing job, represented the absolute spirit of library customer service, learned the system, the patrons just did an amazing job, and it really sparked an interest in Jason and myself for a little extracurricular interdepartmental shadowing and training. I think it's an idea we could talk about in the future. But I just really want to thank Joelle and Teresa for stepping up like that. It was amazing. And to that, what being the best small library in America, sharing that award, not just with our patrons, our staff, our community, but with all of you. And I just really, really want to acknowledge we are a department of the city of Bisbee, a department that is not, even though we're in a different part of the city, we are not running it alone. We are running it with all of your help, all of your support, every department, and that includes police and fire for their, how they help us with volunteering, with programs, and the kids and everything, but just all of you, thank you so much. You share this award, and I want you to own that and to take that, because truthfully, this award is a huge, powerful step for economic development in this community, and we should all own it. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Allison.
Just one last thing. I just wanted, so when Dan was here, we had gathered all of our certs together that everybody had, and I had given him all of the certs that our people have because of the whole 5% and that whole thing. So I was like, well, we have guys with laundry lists of professional certifications and actual degrees and stuff like that that doesn't get even batted an eye at, maybe an attaboy if you're lucky. So I was wondering if you still had that, and if he passed that on to you, because that would save me a lot of steps and having to do it all over again. But
If you would check with me, maybe
Okay.
even after today, because I know that the program that we use for online timekeeping is also what we use for finance, payroll, everything. Their human resources side of it is expanding, as well as online timekeeping. For example, you've seen changes, like if you look, you can now see your contact information, your emergency contacts. You can see what benefits you're getting paid and what you're paying out in your paycheck. I believe there is a section for certifications, and I have been collecting. I have a number of them from library, from the clerks, building inspector. So any of you that have certifications, check with me first if you've already given them to Dan. And if I do not have them, unfortunately, I hate to have to make you do more work, but I did really, there was just not a lot there when I moved into that office. So I will look electronically, but I will definitely, come touch base with me. We'll pull a couple people and see if maybe it's in a personnel file, and I can get that entered in that electronic system, and then we can maybe, pull reports from that and see where we're at, who, we have some amazing people here.
We don't have access to that.
Yeah, I want to work on that.
Okay.
So, yes.
Does anybody else have any more comments, since I forgot the two that were sitting right next to me?
I'm done. I'm done.
You good?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you.